Hello, everybody. I'm hoping everybody can hear me. This is crazy. Okay. If anybody can't hear me and we're on mute, please let me know, because something just went kind of wonky on the sound just before we came back. So hello, everybody. Good morning. My name is Jeff Pearson. I'm the host, and welcome to Invisible Condition. Glad you're here. We created this show for you because we wanted to make sure everyone with an invisible condition knew that they had a voice, a community, and that they are not alone. And you're not alone. And speaking of not alone, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is Adriana Morrison, and she is joining me in person this morning, which is so fun. And thank you for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
This is awesome. Yeah. So Adriana, tell us about yourself, your family, how long you lived in Colorado, what brought you to Colorado, all that good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I first of all, I love Colorado. So I am a wife and a mom of 4 kids. Their ages 14, 15, 17, and 18. And we've lived in Colorado since 2014. But I was not a native, or I'm not a native, and although I wish I were, I was born and raised in Florida, and I lived in Tennessee for about 10 years by way of my first marriage. So my ex-husband and I are parents to my 4 kids. And then after that marriage came to an end, I was a single mom for a while, for a couple of years. And I knew that Colorado was calling my name just because of all of the things I've come to know about Colorado. Me being in the health and wellness space, health and fitness space for over 21 years. I knew how active Colorado is. And so in 2014, I took a chance and we moved here. And actually, my ex-husband and I, who at that point, we were able to get past our differences and become good friends and allies and co-parent with the kids. So we planned our moves together at the same time. So he's here too. And so when we got here in 2014, I was getting my feet wet. I was planting my roots, and then not long after that, I met my now husband. And so we've had an amazing life here. There's incredible people, and I couldn't be any happier of where we live. So.
Nice. That's awesome. That is. I'm sorry. I just gotta say this. I gotta throw this out there. That's rare. I'm serious. That is so rare. Like. I have always believed there's no such thing as an amicable divorce. You know, it's like there's no such thing. It's always at odds. But if you guys have been able to, that is something I'm gonna mark my calendar, man. That's the first time I think I've ever heard that. That's pretty good. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
For the sake of the kids, well done, right?
It's listen, I'm gonna be honest. It was, we had a period of ugly right when the marriage was coming to an end, and we were. We just kind of closed ranks where we could within our space. And then there came a point where we knew that we were going to be in each other's lives. And so we were drawing a truce and decided, you know what? I remember telling my ex-husband, I'm in your corner. I want you to win. I know that we weren't each other's fit, but I'm here cheering you on, and I'm not your enemy. I'm your ally. He felt the same way too, and
Yeah.
so it feels good to be friends and plan to be in the kids' corner. And I mean, the kids win. They win.
Yeah, they
Mhm.
do. That's amazing. No, because that's once you have kids, you are in essence you are kind of latched together forever in some way, right? So it's nice if you get along. So anyway, I know that wasn't the point of the show, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to congratulate you on that because that is not easy.
Thank you.
So now you have 4 children,
Yes.
and 3 out of the 4 of them are on the autism spectrum.
Yes, they are.
Okay. And how old were each of them when they were diagnosed?
So out of the 4 in birth order, it's 1, 2, and 4 that are on the autism spectrum. So number 3 is
Okay.
neurotypical,
Okay.
which is what we call not exhibiting any symptoms, not identifying with the diagnosis. So basically, hate to say normal, but in the autism community, we call it,
yeah.
yes, we call it neurotypical.
There you go.
So my oldest, Isaiah, he is now 18, and he was diagnosed at 22 months of age. And let's see,
Wow.
my daughter Callista, so she is 12 months 11 days younger than him. She was diagnosed when she was 33 months old, so a little bit older.
Hmm.
And then Jasmine, the youngest, she was diagnosed when she was in, I want to say she was in fourth grade. So
Wow.
it was right around age 9, 8, 9,
Okay.
9 years old. So
I'm sorry, that kind of blows my mind a little bit. How do you diagnose somebody with a condition like that at 2? You said 2 and like almost 2 and almost 3.
almost 2.
Like what
Yes.
is it because they were more advanced on the spectrum, or was it just like how do you diagnose anything at that age?
So my
Like
old
that's amazing.
That's a great question. My oldest he was exhibiting some symptoms that were concerning. And at the
Okay.
time, I knew that something was different, and
Mhm.
I knew that he wasn't demonstrating some of the things that we know kids to do at his age.
Okay.
So he wasn't pointing. His eye contact was not there.
Mm.
He was very echolalic at the time, and I thought it was babbling and like learning.
What's that word?
Echolalic is when you echo either sounds or words, but there's no meaning behind it.
It's just a
So
reflex almost.
it is, but
Okay.
it almost sounds robotic, but there's no
Oh.
meaning or there's no context behind why, say, that person or that child or adult will say or do. They'll just
Oh.
do that.
Okay.
So
Okay,
yeah.
so there was obvious things. It wasn't
Yes.
like it wasn't like just arbitrarily, hey, let's test them for this. There was actually obvious things going on that
Yes.
led you to think that okay, I'm sorry. I know that just the diagnosis process for some of these conditions is just fascinating to me. But when it's that obvious, I guess that makes sense.
Well, I'll tell
Yeah.
you, he didn't. There's a little story behind how I pushed for him to get diagnosed.
Your oldest.
My oldest.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Isaiah. So I remember sitting and I was watching TV, and at the time it was back in 2005, and I was watching a PSA, a public service announcement for Doug Flutie. Now, for those of you who don't know, Doug Flutie is a famous former NFL, CFL player. And his son is on the autism spectrum, and I think he played in the early 80s, and he was just an incredible quarterback. And so he had a public service announcement about autism, and tied to that were symptoms and statements of these. Also, they were showing other indicators of autism that weren't necessarily common. So when I saw that, it took my attention,
Yeah.
and I started talking to the pediatrician. And at first, the pediatrician said, well, boys mature, boys
Oh.
mature later than girls, and so let's just wait a little while before we do anything about that. And
Mm,
I again saw that PSA, and I thought, okay, I can't wait any longer. This is I know that we need to have some sort of treatment if
yeah.
something's there. So I insisted. Now this is at the time we were living in Tennessee. So the
Okay.
pediatrician listened to me. He said, okay. He said, I just to make sure we cover all, cross all T's and dot all I's, let me refer you out to get an assessment by a specialist. And so we ended up going to the top autism specialist in East Tennessee,
Nice.
and I remember his name to this day, Dr. Bill Allen, and he. And so when we went through the process, I remember telling him, "Listen, don't cut corners with me. Don't, just give it to us straight and
Yeah.
all of that." And he said, well, okay, your son has autism spectrum disorder, and here's a laundry list of things that I need for you to do, and these are things you need to do, and then we went from there. Now, I took the list, and we got in the car, and I had a good cry,
Yeah.
but
Okay. Good. You're normal then.
yes,
Yeah.
I had a good
Yeah.
cry, and
Oh man.
but that was a turning point for us as a family.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. That's some big news right there.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, well, let me just throw this out there to the live audience watching. Anybody that knows anybody or has been affected by somebody on the autism spectrum, if it's a child or a relative or anything, we would love to hear from you. Like during the show, even if you're watching and you wanna join in on the chat, you can do that on Facebook most easily. In my opinion, it's easy on Facebook, but maybe I'm just a Facebook guy. But jump in and we'll be able to see your comments and we can even communicate with you during the show. So check it out. You've got the expert right here. So anyway, so yeah. That aside, what types of so you said there's 3 out of 4 and they're all kind of on different spots on the spectrum. So
Mhm.
what types of uh, autisms what types of autism do each of them have? Like, what's a diagnosis kind of thing?
So there was a time where it was also there were several diagnoses in the DSM-4, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, if I'm remembering it right.
Thank you. I've
And
always
so
wondered what that stood for. Somebody
DSM,
said
yes.
that before. I've heard that a lot, and I've never understood what that is.
Yes, and
Okay.
so it is a breakdown. It's basically the template of how diagnoses are identified in the medical community. And
Nice.
so there are several because autism is a spectrum, meaning from one end to the other, you're going to get a variety of different, whether it's high functioning or low
Yeah.
functioning, you're going to get a wide variety of people on the spectrum. So they say if you meet one person with autism, you meet one person with autism. That no two
Yes.
are alike. And so there's for the higher functioning autism, we had in the past used terms such as Asperger's diagnosis,
Mm.
also pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. So the acronym for that is PDD-NOS. And so if you think back to maybe in high school, if there was ever somebody who was extremely quirky, but was very, very to themselves, and maybe they showed like a gifted
Mm.
ability to
Mm-hmm.
to learn in a specific area,
Mm-hmm.
there is a chance that that person could have fallen under the higher portion of the autism diagnosis. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not for me to say that's exactly what they were going through.
Sure.
But
Well, and back in the, I mean, when I was in, let's see, high school, that would have been early 90s. So, I mean, even then, 80s and 90s, it just wasn't that. It just wasn't that. There was very small bits of exposure that people got, and they were calling it this big generalized thing with this big giant umbrella over it, and yeah. So now, I mean, I'm glad that they've figured it out more and they've got more specific diagnoses because that helps you,
Yes,
right?
and
That
some of the bigger ones are when kids are younger, like the non-pointing, the toe
mm,
walking, hand flapping. Sometimes that's
yeah,
an issue. The audio and visual. Sometimes we call it stimming, where it looks like an obsessiveness over like staring at objects, or the audio piece, where they're listening to a certain sound, and even pressure sensation can be off. And these are just an example of different symptoms or different indicators that someone could be on the spectrum. But for my daughter, who number two, when she was diagnosed, we were seeing some things, and I reluctantly got her diagnosed. I'll be honest, I did not at the time. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't have another one on the spectrum. I just can't. I just can't. And
Totally.
so so sure enough, she met the criteria. And when we were in the beginning stages, I remember that I was very much on autopilot. I had a hard time processing her diagnosis because it just didn't, it was sinking in that, just because you have one child on the autism spectrum, it doesn't guarantee that all your kids are going to be on it. But I didn't think that the odds, it just didn't occur to me that the odds would be the way that they were.
Yeah. Well, sure. And then with, and then the third, and then you had third person diagnosed, third child diagnosed.
My youngest daughter, number 4.
Yeah. So you got first, second, and then your third was neurotypical. And then what was your reaction to your youngest being diagnosed? Like, you thought you were in the clear, right? You had neurotypical.
I thought we were good. But we had teachers we had her elementary school teachers approaching us and saying through grades that she was just disconnected. She was not paying attention. She wasn't socially involved with some of the peer groups that were happening for class projects or games or little things that were going on in class.
Sure.
And so a funny story about this. So when she was in third or fourth grade, it was close to the end of third grade, if I'm not getting my wires crossed, and the teacher wanted us to have a meeting. And so the psychologist came in, the school psychologist, and so they started to share their concerns, and the psychologist kind of came out of nowhere and said, I'm just seeing symptoms of autism, and so we need to figure out how. And I just in raw, candid fashion, I said, whoa,
hold the phone,
pump the brakes, and I said, if you have concerns, I will investigate and do my due diligence. I said, but this is a lot. It's kind of like killing a mosquito with a shotgun. And so I need to process this while I take action. And I did. Now, it took a while for us to get the diagnosis because there was a wait list to get the proper assessments. So we waited a while, but when we got it, it was actually at Children's Hospital. And so my husband, her stepfather, and I were there. And when we got the news, the staff was great in helping us and trying to show support. But I took that one hard.
Yeah.
Even though she's higher functioning, it just, each time it's just, there's this process of, I think there was a mourning process with me of, my vision of how things were to be. Now my vision no longer applies. Now we need to make sure that we're navigating and supporting her in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Because it's not my journey, it's our journey. And so I have to posture up as her mom.
Oh man. Yeah. 3. I mean, that's
3 on the spectrum.
That's gotta be crazy to hear, Well, just to end, we got about a minute left of this segment, and I want to end it on a good note. So what, with all of that considered, what successes have you had? Like, what's been really a cool thing about raising 3 kids, 3 out of 4 on the spectrum?
Several things. There are silver linings. I will say that number one, I'm so profoundly grateful that my kids are here. And had I just decided to not allow myself to be open to being a mom to more, then obviously they wouldn't be here. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, it taught me that I needed to posture up. And so motherhood, of course, for any of you moms out there, you already know that this role that we step into is the greatest challenge. It's the most rewarding. It teaches you so much. So it taught me to posture up. It taught me to have some rhino skin, is what
That's
I
right.
like to say, and to use my voice and have clearer conversations where I can negotiate. And so my negotiating skills began to improve the more that I was navigating through schools and the resources that they qualified for. And then autism teaches you that you celebrate the micro milestones, the things that you don't take for granted, that you celebrate. A win is a win, and they're all
Yes.
considered big. You pump fists, you yay, you all of that, and it just allows you to really, just be in the moment and
That's
enjoy it.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I love that because that's not always typical, probably. So no, that's
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Well, okay, we got to stop and go and do a commercial, but we'll be right back, and then we're going to talk some more about some more really cool stuff. So here, hold on just a second. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. And yeah, we're back and we're talking with Adriana Morrison, and we're talking about autism and all the fun and all the crazy
Mhm.
that, that comes
You
with
betcha.
it. So we were kind of talking about family stuff and how everything was coming down and how you're finding everything out. The first segment, what is autism actually? Like what's going on in the brain of somebody that's got autism?
So, autism is considered a neurological disorder of the brain in which it affects social skills. It affects just levels of attachment and also perceptions. It can affect a person with autism can be affected by sensory. So there
Mm.
can be some sensory issues going on either by touch, by auditory, visual, pressure, and it also it shows that the brain in essence is wired a little bit differently. So it's a condition that was recognized earlier in the 1940s, and
Oh.
the ratio of autism has continued to move an alarming rate. When my oldest was diagnosed with autism, it was like 1 in 150, and now the CDC, I looked it up the other day, the CDC is stating that 1 in 36 kids
What?
will be diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum this calendar year. 1 in 36.
That's insane.
Mhm. It is.
I
Yeah.
mean, any any clue why it's gone up so much? I mean, everybody's got a speculation, right?
Yes, they do.
Everybody's got an idea, but if you even entertain that, I mean, it doesn't matter. You are where you are, right? But
true.
But I mean, I don't know. I'm fascinated with that. That's
true. They do have, there's theories that are out there, but
Sure.
there's no one particular unified conclusion of what causes autism.
Yeah.
The strongest theory that is out there, and when I say, or I should say the most popular one, it's one that I subscribe to, is that it is a theory of a genetic predisposition combined with an environmental trigger. So in our case, you know, looking at my background and looking at my ex-husband's background, he's the father, you can see that there are some genetic components that they've noticed that there's a commonality. So they've noticed that there's a trend with people who are diagnosed with autism and a family tree having a history of, like, say, bipolar disorder or any type of mental health condition, Tourette's, and clinical depression and things like that. So there's been it's been noticeable, but it's not been definitively concluded that that's the case.
Sure. I mean, like you said, everybody's got a theory. Everyone wants to throw their hat in the ring and say, I know what it is. We should do this, you know, but yeah.
Yes.
It's probably one of those things that we'll never figure out, or well, maybe we will. I don't know, but that's not the point. I just was curious.
Yes.
So we call it a spectrum. So how much? So is it actually it's a big range? Like there's less and less. It was like severity, a range of severity, or a range of.
It is. Yeah. It is. You can have someone who is higher functioning autism that at, you know, in the beginning of the conversation with them, that you may not be able to detect that they're on the spectrum at all. And then you have it all the way down to lower functioning autism. They also call it savant autism, that is would be severe enough to show some of the classic indicators and symptoms of autism.
I've heard that word before, savant. I mean, probably a lot of people have heard that word before, but I've never really understood where that fits. So that's good.
Yes.
That's good to know. Yeah, this is good. We're all learning something.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So what was the I mean, I know 3 children, it was probably different each time, right? You've touched on the diagnosis process with I think it was your oldest, but how was it with, or I can't remember how much we talked about that. What was the diagnosis process with each of them? Because it had to be different, like, especially being so young.
Yes.
Right.
So my oldest, Isaiah, so at 22 months, we got the diagnosis of that it was considered mild to moderate at the time. And so there was some speech delay in addition to that. And so we started learning about early intervention resources in our area. Now, every state has a specific level of early intervention. So the key, and I've shared this with so many autism families, is that the earlier, the better. The last thing that I ever wanted to do as a mom with kids on the autism spectrum was be my own delay. And what I mean by that is that there are some parents that I have come across, that autism families, that they struggle with the diagnosis. So that struggle prevents them from taking action. And so the issue at hand is the brain has a window of opportunity where we can have the biggest impression. And so as that child gets older, that window of opportunity begins to close. And so it becomes more dire that we implement resources so that child is surrounded by as many supportive elements around them, so they're set up for success. And so I have come across some parents who struggle, and unfortunately that's you don't want to delay. You don't want to wait till it's too late to make a bigger impact on that child's life.
Well, because there's certain stages of development in the brain and in the body when children are certain ages, right? I didn't even think about that, or I don't know why, but yeah, you don't want that because they learn certain things at certain ages, right? Or something like that,
Yes.
right? So if you let that close, then you can't go back.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
you can't turn a pickle into a cucumber. You can't. But with my
Sure.
with my other daughter, with my daughters, Callista, who's my second born, and then Jasmine, my fourth, they were both, they are both higher functioning autism. And so Callista, at the time when she was 33 months old, she received the diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. And so they've since, they've since adjust how, how it's declared when someone is noted that they're on the spectrum. And then my daughter Jasmine, the youngest, she's also been diagnosed as higher functioning. Now the interesting thing is that they both operate completely differently. Callista is a little more social, but it's kind of awkward sometimes for her. And
Okay.
Jasmine is more of, she's a little more socially distant, but her spatial acuity is literally through the roof. We actually have her in engineering classes
Nice.
in this coming freshman year
That's
in the
awesome.
fall.
Oh
So
man,
yeah.
that's so cool. That's impressive. Like seriously, that's really cool. So,
Yes.
so you said autism. What is there? I know with some invisible conditions there are typical co-conditions that kind of come with it. Anything going on there that you've noticed?
Well, with Isaiah, so he's the one with the lower functioning. Right
Okay.
now, he has a total of 7 diagnoses, and
Hmm.
as he's grown and he's 18 now, we've discovered that the teenage years tend to be the hardest for autism families, because not only do you have hormonal changes, but then you have just the relationships begin to adjust as they get older. And so with Isaiah, he has generalized anxiety disorder. He also has DMDD, which is disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, which is kind of a challenge for us, just because there are some behavioral outbursts that come with that there's, sometimes there's no triggers, no warnings. And so we've had to adjust big time. Last year
Yeah.
was a really tough time for us,
Sure.
but it also showed the strength and our resolve as a family to come together and make sure that we expose him to as many resources as possible.
Absolutely. No, that's huge. Well, and to have a good family unit, that goes back to even with your ex-husband being able to get along so well, and then with your husband now. I mean, yeah, that's all so huge, because that's one factor you don't need to add, right? You don't need to make it that part difficult. There's already enough going on, right?
And I will tell you, last year, so right now, Isaiah is in a residential host home. And what we concluded based on all our findings and clinical interventions last year is that he, in his own way, even if his vocabulary isn't expounding, he kind of wanted to be on his own. And so,
that's cool.
although yes,
that's
and although
really cool.
he cannot lead an independent life, he can't live by himself. There are ways to set him up so that he has his own dwelling. And so we got that situated. But we were really struggling last year, we closed ranks. It was myself, my husband, my ex-husband, and we needed to come together as a team, because when the kids were with my ex-husband, Isaiah was having behavioral outbursts as well. And so we would brainstorm a lot. And for the really hard moments, we really connected as a family. So we had a lot of healthcare providers that had mentioned to us, that they said during all of this time, even though it was really hard, they said, we got to commend you. We don't always see this. The fact that, you, husband, ex-husband, everyone's together. We don't have to get permission. Everyone's unified. And I can't tell you how important it is to put our big girl and our big boy panties on and put ourselves aside, so that we can work together and have a better ending to a hard issue.
Well, it's amazing how, totally. And I commend you for that as well, because it's so difficult to watch families that don't have that dynamic, when you see them out and about, it's so refreshing to know that there are some out there that that are doing that, because it's so much better for the kids. It's better for the family overall to have the better dynamic like that.
Yeah,
So
I mean the kids win when, you know, I just remember when we divorced that it was the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I communicated to my ex, and I knew
yeah,
that his guard was up, and mine was too. But I remember communicating, we're in this together.
yeah,
So if we can do this, and he believed the same way, and so that's what got us through the hard times when Isaiah was having his he was having his moments, and he had to stay in the neuropsych unit for, he had a total of maybe almost 2 months stay for a time, and
yeah.
but we needed to do what we needed to do to protect him, his safety, the safety of everyone around him, and so we were able to make sure that his medical care was with the right combination, but we had to communicate. We absolutely had to.
No, it's
Mhm.
of course.
Mhm.
That's yeah. I mean, if you don't, it's just to the detriment of the child. It doesn't.
Yes.
I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. So that's huge.
Yes.
Yeah, totally. Well, we already kind of talked about the rate of it's. That's ridiculous. I'm
1 in
sorry, but that's
36.
crazy. One in
Mhm.
36. I can't even believe it. I knew it was
Yeah.
high,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah.
Um, so with it being that high and gotten to be that common, what kind of services are out there that are available? I mean, surely with the commonality coming up, that has to have been increased too, right?
Yes,
Hopefully.
yes, it does vary from state to state. It just
Sure.
depends on state funding, state resources, and there are nonprofit organizations on the national level that are broken down into, the state level and then local level. So in the autism world, we have the Autism Society of America, which is who I'm mostly connected to. There's also Autism Speak. There's several organizations that have come together to meet the needs of autism families for advocacy, to tap into resources, things that families qualify for, and then there are also organizations in different regions, different counties. Here within Denver Metro, we've tapped into an organization called Developmental Pathways, and what they do is they have a network of case management, and then the social support, the at home resources, and then they have other community resources that will allow parents to get connected. And the biggest thing is if you're a family, if you are part of a family, or if you know someone who is part of an autism family, the biggest thing that you can do is always offer your measure of support. I think autism families go through. There are moments where we go through our storms. I mean, everyone
Yeah,
goes through storms, but
of
we
course.
we definitely have a very distinct storms that we go through, and so it's always important to offer help, offer words of support, or just even ask, is there anything I can do? Most families need respite from time to time, that they
Yeah.
need to tap out for a
Hmm.
time so they can catch their breath, and then they can just jump back into things. But I will say,
Yeah.
just leaving eyes and ears open, being proactive, finding out what that family qualifies for. Even with case management, that has helped me to decipher some of the lingo that comes with understanding what's available and the process for applying for things for Isaiah. And it can be tedious. I mean, I don't know what's
Yeah.
worse, taxes or applying for different for different supports, but there's
Right.
different waivers that kids can qualify for, and it just depends on what the state offers.
Yeah. No, you're not kidding. Yeah. What's worse? Yeah. Nobody likes taxes,
Yeah.
but applying for services for things like that, it can be. I can't
It's like
imagine.
writing a
That's
term paper. So it's just
at
yeah.
best.
Yeah.
You wish it was that easy, probably sometimes.
Yes.
Oh man. Well, yeah. So so with I think we'll put this. We want to include any of this in like the notes or the comments after when this goes live and when this goes on, or it's live now, but you know what I mean, after the show, we want people to be able to reach out to those organizations too. So we'll make sure that we put information so that you can learn about this stuff too, so that if you know somebody that needs it, you can help them out. Because like, you hit the nail on the head, man. Always open to help. So
yes,
which is huge. So all right, well, we're gonna do one more commercial break, and then we will be back to talk about hope.
Yes,
because that's the best part. So we'll be right back in just a minute. All right, and we're back, and this has gone so fast.
it has.
It always does. It always does when we're covering this important stuff. You know, there's never enough time to talk about it. You know,
never.
we could have 3 hours, and we'd never get to right. We'd never get to it all. So I have a totally random question that I have to ask you before we get to the last segment. We always like to talk about the hope, because hope, if we don't have hope, we're dead in the water already, right? Because that's the only thing that helps us carry on, especially in a situation that you find out that something's wrong or something hit the fan, right? So, but I don't know if you can see this. The people on the screen can't, but I printed off. There's a what's
that's a wolf.
There's a logo that she's got. You've got a logo for here that I thought that was so cool. I'm fascinated with that stuff, and I wanted to ask you. I know that had nothing to do with what we're talking about today.
No, that's a wolf.
But I have to ask, what the wolf in the with the microphone and all that. What's going on there?
So,
cool.
I love the characteristics of the wolf. The wolf is an amazing animal that just exudes resilience. It's on the move. It's not only about survival, but it's thriving. It's vocal. The wolf is vocal, majestic, powerful, cunning, and just all things that you know the can be in beast mode when when need be. But that level of persistence and resilience is something that I just draws to me. And so I love that to be like my unofficial mascot.
Awesome. So that's what I kind of thought, but I wanted to ask you about this here because I thought that was so cool. I saw that on when you sent me your bio and info and everything. I saw that on there, and I was like, I gotta ask her. I can't skip over that. That's too cool. So plus I really like designing logos, so that's fascinating to me when I see one that's cool like that.
I'm glad you like it. I thought that would go together.
So well done. It's good. It's great.
Thank you.
So okay, and we digress. Here we are. We're back. with all of the crazy and all the uncertainty and everything that you've gone through over the last years, how do you personally day to day find hope?
You know, I once upon a time I learned a very powerful message that tomorrow is promised to no one. And so, and in doing, and when we keep that in mind, that means that it's no longer a should, it's a must that we make the most out of today.
Yeah.
That we take the action that we need to take, because we all go through storms. We're either entering a storm, we're, no matter what the situation is, what we need to do, what's important to do is be able to hang on and outlast the temporary, because every chapter in our life it's just a temporary, it's a moment in time,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't represent the entire time span. And so for us, we've learned to, not only do we learn to celebrate all the moments, but I wake up and I'm like, gosh, today's a new day, tomorrow's a new day, today's a new day, and I can make the most of it. And
Yeah.
eyes in front, if I stare at the rearview mirror, I'm not going to be able to steer the car that I'm driving, and you can't steer a parked car, so I better step on the
That's
gas
true.
and keep going.
That's true.
So,
No, yeah, when you're driving, I know I think about that sometimes because I've heard that saying before. Obviously, oh, don't operate in the rearview mirror, right? And you're driving and you it's like, whoa, we got to look here.
yes,
It
yes.
could be dangerous.
Yes.
So, how do you share that hope with others?
I lead by example.
Love it.
And I use my voice to connect. I just, whenever, if I see somebody that's just having a great day, or if I make it a point to compliment someone, I make it a point to be available whenever I can, to anyone who I see that might be in need, who's hurting, who's someone who I know. I do my best not to be silent. And so in doing so, that human connection is so much more powerful than we give it credit for.
Yeah.
That if we can just practice it a little bit more and be 1% better than who we were yesterday, I mean, we're going to climb, we're going to be on top, we're going to be on top of our game before we know it.
I love it. Is there any, this is kind of a crazy question given everything, but is there anything you're actually thankful for in relation to that, like all the crazy? What you thankful for?
I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for my ability to eat my humble pie whenever possible, and my willingness to continue to learn. Because if I decide that I have all the answers, I'm blocking myself from any blessings in the future. If I'm willing to grow outside my comfort zone, if I'm open to the idea of learning beyond that which I know, and then I give myself grace along the way, that sometimes you can't always rock the runway. Sometimes you're going to fumble forward, and so in doing so, it's okay. It's okay that we stumble. It's okay that we sidestep. We just decide to keep going. And I heard an amazing quote that I got to share. I think it's by Jamie Kern Lima, and she said, "Imagine what would happen if you decided to believe that you could."
Nice.
Imagine what would happen if you decided to believe that you could.
And who is that?
Jamie Lincoln. So she is a she wrote an amazing book, and she used to work in the cosmetic. She was an anchor. She was an anchor person, and so she decided to open up her own line of cosmetics. And but in doing so, she heard no so many times, and her husband had sacrificed tremendously. They got in front of the right people, and initially they were told no, and after a time, they didn't give up, and I think she ended up on QVC, and it was a literally do or die situation, and they had very rigorous criteria for products to be sold. It's like an all or nothing approach, and I'm summarizing Cliff Notes version.
Sure.
But and it literally the last, like right at the last, I mean, she struck a home run.
Nice.
You know, all her products sold, but they sacrificed everything to make her dream happen. They never gave up. And she's got an amazing story. Jamie Kern Lima. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I've heard that. I've heard a variation. You know, you hear variations of that quote, but I've never really understood where it came from. So that's really cool.
Yes.
So if you had a new parent of somebody on the autism spectrum and sitting in front of you right now, and they were wanting words of hope and talk them off a ledge, you know, kind of thing, what would you tell them?
I would first give them I would offer a hug.
Yes.
And I would let them know, you know, I understand your journey, and I hear you, and you know, I'm here for you. So I think that that's the first step, to always offer a family of a that has this new diagnosis. And then I would share, you know, depending upon what they're needing, I would share that, you know, that we're a thriving family, that I have 3 out of the 4 of my kids on the spectrum, and I'm thriving. I'm not, autism is only one hat that I wear, but it's not the only hat that I wear. I still make it a point to take care of myself and be present in all the things that life has to offer. It's just we move a little bit differently. We're a little bit we are more focused on time management, which is a, you know, golden in the long run.
Yeah.
And then I would offer, you know, I would offer stories of hope and inspiration of my kids, that it's not dismal. It is, you know, it's autism teaches you that you're, you know, it's a unique journey, and one that has, you know, that has its triumphs and your celebrations, and the future is yet to come. So we should never be in a position to decide whether or not a child can thrive or what their future looks like. We just leave things wide open and we go for it all.
I love that. That's great, because that just leaves it. Yeah, let them decide, figure it out. So speaking of taking care of yourself, and you've pursued that, and you've made quite a successful business out of it. And so tell us about that, and then tell us how people can connect with you if they're wanting to reach out.
Yes. So I'm an online fitness and nutrition coach. I work primarily with women over the age of 40, but emerging 40 somethings. I definitely am open to anyone who is needing that type of fitness professional in their corner. I've been in the health and wellness space for over 21 years. I teach women I literally say I teach women how to burn fat, build muscle, and make chest moves through the perimenopause and the menopause journey. Because just as we get older, it doesn't mean that all is gone. It is a blueprint that we have to follow while taking into consideration the hormonal imbalances that are happening in the body. And so, so there's a variety of different ways that I work with women. I have a Jumpstart program, my 30-day Synergize program. I have one-on-one coaching. I'm about to launch an 8-week course that allows me kind of like a meeting in the middle between those two. I also have an app. It's called Synergized Fitness. It is available in the App Store and Google Play. So I'm very proud of that.
That's awesome.
And and where you can find me is the social media handles I'm most common on, or that I'm most visible on, are Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And my handle is Fitness with Adriana, both on Facebook and Instagram. On TikTok, my TikTok handle is Fitness with Adriana _. So you got to add that little underscore at the bottom.
There you go.
So yeah. Yes.
It's important with the social media. Don't one little thing you don't put in there, and you're gone. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, that's so cool. I'm so glad that you were here and that you got to share your story and share your kid's story and share this was awesome. I got to say, I don't know nearly enough about autism or fitness, honestly. So this was good. and I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you very much. And so I got to throw this out there. This show is about you out there, and we want people to join us in our journey that are aligned with what we're doing. And so if there's anybody if there's a guest that anybody watching popped into your head, said, ooh, maybe they'd be a good guest, or any businesses out there that want to align with our mission and sponsor the show or anything like that, we are totally open to talking to you. Let's connect. Um, and the next show is the guest for the next show is Phyllis. We love Phyllis.
We do.
Phyllis Marlene Benstein is going to be our guest on Friday, and she's going to be talking about all the ups and downs and fun and crazy with traumatic brain injuries, which I know quite a bit about myself. So this should be a very interesting discussion, and it'll be pretty awesome. I'm looking forward to the show, and you should too, because it's going to be fun. So thank you again for being here, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you.
When we are back on Friday. What day is it today?
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. I swear they all start to run together after
they
a little
do.
bit.
It's a big blur.
But we will see you all on Friday. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you then.